Okay, we are live. Juneteenth, 2024. Chief Crow, the edge is in your mind. So is the curve. For those of you curverts who believe there is a curve, it's in your mind, it's on the screen. Same thing, because if it's on the screen, it's on the mind of the curverted true believers in anything on the screen. I've been writing an article about this argument from authority that is the basis for the pro globe side of the flat versus round debate. And one of the things they never do on any of the debates is they never get into the realm of media fakery. So you have to remember, if you're debating something, let's say because it's frame of references, and so you're talking about two different frames of reference. The people defending the NASA side of things trust the news. It's an authority. It's an argument, and it's an appeal to its own authority. It's their side. It's like we get to cite our own source as an authority. And that to me is the fundamental flaw, because they don't even allow the possibility that their side could lie, that their sources might distort. It's kind of naive. It's also a form of gaslighting, but we'll get into the nuance there as we go on. And one more thing, even if, let's say, somebody gets sent down to the South Pole, Jeranism goes down there, and he watches a 24-hour sun, and they totally prove, therefore, that we're on a ball Earth. It doesn't change the fact that the history itself has been bent. The news is bent. Our worldview is bent. So the IPS will remain on the same course regardless, because that's really a distraction. Shape of the world is a distraction from everything else, in my opinion. But there is some kind of an effort right now to have some flurf go deep south and observe a 24-hour sun. And I'm all for it. I'm all for people getting out of the conference room. See, what happened is the whole flat earth thing became a conference movement. And then it became a cult. A very bizarre cult. And at its very top, they believed that the sky was made of glass and it was going to fall. And that the glass would impale the non-believers. Insane. And I heard a rumor that there was even a piece of dome glass in the possession of somebody at one of these conferences. But they didn't show it to everybody, obviously, because they would have invited, I don't know, scrutiny, critical thinking, well-deserved ridicule. It's like bringing a moon rock. I went to the moon. That's petrified wood. And I don't know what's in that dome glass. All right, let's see. P Trippa 103, ears up, do us some para. Diana South, 3 up, 3 down. Ted Stryker. Oh, you just watched the Newsbenders. Ted Stryker says, I just watched the Newsbenders, the Towers. Wow. Yes, I mentioned this the other day. Newsbenders required watching for all Infinite Plane radio listeners. You can find it on YouTube. It's well worth watching. It's a great hypothetical or possibly a description of how things are. But it literally contains predictive programming for future faked events. And one of the main events would be the Twin Tower spectacle. And it's not specifically overtly mentioned, but it's kind of intimated in the background, and that was caught by Synchromorpheus. We talk about that a lot, and that's why I say that our history is bent. It's a reference to newsbenders, bending the news, steering it. And I don't know if this is true, but according to Michael Hoffman, who wrote Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare, he claimed that we're dealing with essentially witchcraft in high places, and he claimed that the name or the word Wicca comes from some derivative as wicker and refers to the ability to bend, and he referred to it as bending history. Interesting concept, but who talks about bending history in those terms other than the newsbenders and us? Well, Maxwell Azarello, Burning Man 4/19/2024, the guy who set himself on fire in front of the Trump trial, had his manifesto, and on the back he claimed that he and his group of people with truth glasses would bend history. So it's kind of an unusual turn of phrase, but we've adopted it because it does perfectly describe things here. The fact that our worldview is bent is far more relevant than the alleged bend or flatness of the horizon. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, I'll put a link in the chat, by the way, if you haven't seen it. I'll put a link in the video notes below. News benders. Dewis Impera says, the fringe is on your forehead. Exploringagain.com is here. Joined by Lord Laney, Shannon Jones. Dewis says, if Flat Earth fails, at least there's crypto. Right. Look, I'm not married to any particular model. Never have been. I could care less. I mean, I do care, actually. I care intensely, but rather, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to change our trajectory. If I were to find out that we lived on a ball floating in space, my next question would be, well then why can't you give us a real picture of it? You're giving us a misrepresentation, you're filtering it, you're giving us CGI. So there's still a cover up, if nothing else. Maybe they're covering up an advanced civilization out there in the uncharted waters. Not sure. Ted Stryker says the guy in Newsbenders, the main guy, was in the Halloween movies. You know, there was something else too, and I believe this was pointed out by They Live We See. The guy from Newsbenders was going to be the voice of Hell 9000, but they decided to go against it because of his accent. So that alone is intriguing because you're looking at a connection between Newsbenders and Kubrick, and Kubrick is one of the principal Newsbenders. So endlessly intriguing. I'm glad others are watching it and commenting. Again, we'll delve back into that here soon. Elephant Tusk says, Tim, I have an excellent one for you, David Lynch. Okay, now, I used to like a lot of David Lynch's films. I always like the soundtracks. He's actually pretty much a genius. I like a lot of his earlier animation work too. But does he have any predictive programming? Is he in? He did Mulholland Drive, which has some interesting connections to illusion. There is some and I don't know if there's a direct connection, but there was this John Mulholland was an American publisher and CIA agent who wrote some classic book on uh, deception and trickery. So Mulholland Drive is one of these David Lynch movies that may have some clues. I think Twin Peaks may be significant. Yeah, Twin Peaks. I've been told it has tons of scripting. I'll have to look into it. Here we go. The CIA paid John Mulholland $3,000 to write a top secret guide on trickery and deception. James Bond meets Harry Houdini, master magician. Now, what's interesting is James Bond 007, that comes from John Dee, the original spy, Elizabethan spy, and codename 007, also a magician. But in the more literal sense, not a stage magician. No, the kind that summons fallen angels to do his bidding or something. That's kind of what it looked like. If you get into Enochian magic, they're interacting with these beings, which they call angels, but they seem incredibly apocalyptic by their rhetoric. Okay, Twin Peaks, all about Saturn. Well, I'll check it out. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Portal Complex says it's timeless. Yeah, that's true of I think all of his films. I might want to take a look though, because there's a blogger. I think it's Isaac Weishaupt, who publishes similar to what we do. I guess he would fall into more synchro mysticism, but I believe he's done quite a bit of work on Twin Peaks. Here we go. Twin Peaks and the Occult Agenda with Isaac Weishaupt. Occult symbolism and pop culture. I started watching or listening to some of his work, but I realized, I haven't seen it yet. So I'm going to have to watch it before I listen, but I will bookmark this podcast and I'll dig deeper into this. I'm interested in all the metascriptors, and I also want to do some extensive mind mapping. It'd be nice if we do this in a Zoom conference. I would like to map this out because I think the synchromistic explanation falls short, and I think we can pick up the slack, and we can steer it in the right direction by showing how a better explanation for this seemingly rigged reality is that it's quite literally rigged from the bottom up. There's no higher source here. There's no higher power. It's literally people in low places. Hidden influencers, hidden persuaders, using the tactics of marketing and propaganda to condition us to accept that the movie on the screen that they call news is indeed reality. Tominoid said there was a recent Twin Peaks season. Okay. J Dig says, I tried watching it 3 times and never been able to get more than a few episodes. Yeah, I thought it was kind of slow and morose, and at the time I was just tired of movies starting off where they find a body. It's always they find a body. But I'll give it my attention. David Lynch is a very fascinating character in and of himself. He was once advocating for the implementation of transcendental meditation in school. There's this debate about prayer in school. Why don't we just let them debate and just introduce transcendental meditation? All right, and I wouldn't call this transcendental, but I was experiencing some, I guess, uh, some kind of a paradoxical excitation from the Benadryl. I had this really bad hay fever yesterday. That's why it put me out. But I'm better now. But these I don't know. I don't want to get too much into it, but I was just kind of sitting there having these remarkable epiphanies, and I'm like, it must be the medication. I wasn't expecting it. I thought I grabbed the non-drowsy. So I was totally out yesterday. I'm back today. We have a few updates, but I mostly want to catch up on links from yesterday. And it looks like Dog Days found something spectacular here. Check this out. This is in our Gilded, and this is why you should join the IPS and get in the Gilded. You find stuff like this. So the chemtrail activists did some kind of vandalism act at Stonehenge. Now, what did they actually do? What is this? It looks like they dumped something all over Stonehenge, some kind of orange powder. Now, these aren't chemtrail activists. I'm being facetious because there are no chemtrail activists. These are climate change activists. Climate activists arrested for spraying orange paint on Stonehenge. Just stop oil. One day before solstice. Interesting timing. Climate activists spray Stonehenge with orange powder. Okay, good timing. Just stop oil proves. Yeah, this is again eco activists destroying stuff. I don't know what the Druids did to incur their ire. I can understand vandalizing. Well, not, I don't understand it, but I understand the mentality behind their other acts designed to outrage people. Just Stop Oil took it literally one year, like last year, and they started vandalizing oil paintings. I'm like, you're that mad at oil, you're just going to go indiscriminately. Oil paintings are off limits. But now here, I'm looking at these climate activists who are mad at Druids now, trying to get some attention. And what Dog Days pointed out is that this looks exactly like the Stonehenge Illuminati playing card. Look at that. It's got an orange glow between these two vertical columns. It's like a little too perfect. And I think this would also suggest something about the solstice. If these things are markers of the equinoxes and solstices, then of course, I think this would suggest that this is also a solstice image on the Illuminati playing card, and that is an orange sun, not the yellow sun. The chemtrail activists, or sorry, the chemtrail believers pretend they remember back when the sun was yellow. You know, I think that probably comes from Teletubbies or something. People form a lot of memories when they're children, and I think they form these misperceptions early on. And they find out later when they actually look, it's nothing like what I thought, and they can't handle the dissonance, so they suggest that reality must have changed. Okay, covered in tang, says Tomonoid. Yep. Butch and Sunny Dance Kid to return from the ISS on the solstice, says Tomonoid. You know, that is 100% an occult ritual. The fact that they're coming down on, now this is what I mean. The sign of Cancer has this specific connotation, which we talked about last year, when you had the Titan submersible falling down or sinking down into the ocean. So at the time I was looking into this, and it turns out that you have the gate of man and the gates of heaven. At the winter solstice, you have the gate of man, where I guess souls ascend, and then the summer solstice is the gates of heaven, where souls. Here we go. Gates of heaven, this old idea that relates to Cancer and Capricorn being the entry and exit points of the soul. So anyway, as we enter into Cancer tomorrow, the souls will enter the world. Cancer is the gate through which all life enters matter. When we first enter, and anyway, this is stuff you can find on the subject of the astrological meanings of the solstices. And so the idea here is that these two individuals, the twins, or rather the two astronauts, they're falling down on the solstice on Cancer, descending from the heavens, incarnating. And they're not landing in the water. They're landing on the earth, which I think is even far more significant, because usually they splash down. They're not doing a splashdown. I'll find a piece on that. Astronauts. This is going to be tomorrow. Well, we'll follow this when it occurs. But the Starliner crew, the Boeing Starliner, are about to land, and they're going to hit the ground on the solstice. Good catch there. And again, last year it was the Titan submersible going down. So that was going down in the ocean. This one is coming down from space, but it's the same basic idea. In fact, I was correlating, and have for some time it's there, the sinking of the Titanic with the falling of the space station. And then you have James Cameron, Titanic and the Abyss, and then his. So this is this recurring theme here of the Abyss and outer space being sort of like the waters above. There's a parallel here. In fact, we were looking at the parallels between, it was, I think, was it Apollo 13 that had a little bit of a period of darkness, and that was kind of similar. It had an oxygen tank rupture, but anyway, we were comparing the Apollo 13 to the capsule that was lost at sea for a little while. Anyway, similar themes. Solstice should be interesting. A Hero Paranormal says Illuminati Game Night. Yep. Commenter recommends The Golden Bow, A Study in Magic and Religion, Sir James George Fraser. Yeah, The Golden Bow is a must-read if you want to understand the mentality behind the killing of the king ritual to ensure the prosperity of the country. The idea that certain kings, certain bloodlines were said to be able to perform miracles, healing and stuff. But throughout this book, he goes into the idea of the sacrifice of the king if there isn't some kind of, I guess, if he's not doing his job, perhaps maybe the kingdom isn't doing as well. They sacrifice the king, and it's this killing of the king rite is described in here in detail. And this was correlated, this golden bow, with the JFK assassination in James Shelby Downward's King Kill 33. In fact, let me bring that up. I could call this a must-read, but it's practically, it's arcane. It really is. King Kill 33. But it does what we do. It goes into the weeds. It goes into the nuance of what was the story leading up to the JFK assassination, and it ties in all kinds of elements from Shakespeare, Wizard of Oz, and this killing of a king rite, and then also some Freemasonic implications. Okay, Steve's Video Stash says the Druids were the hipsters of their day. Well, the Druids have their holy wood, their wands made from the Hollywood. And Jordan Maxwell said that it's the Druze, not the Jews, the Druids, the Druze that control Hollywood. That it's all magic. It's all, Hollywood magic, quite literally. And I think that is true in every sense. I mean, I don't think you can separate media from magic and religion at this point. It's all pretty much the same thing, repackaged and fine-tuned. Oh, nice catch here. Elisa J says the twins, as in Gemini, landing into Cancer, which is the next sign after Gemini. That's perfect. So we were noting their names. Their names both have will. And their mission was delayed for this perfect time. And they were twins. And then we're in the sign of Gemini. So we're putting all this together. And I was talking about the Gemini mission patch. And I'll bring this up if you haven't seen it. Because the Gemini mission patch appears to show 9/11. You have the Twin Towers and the impact zones marked here by stars. Gemini. This is kind of like the Hilton logo. You have the Twin Towers and you can see the flight paths going into it. But anyhow, we were already looking at the symbolism of the twins going up there, and the fact that they're coming down as we go from Gemini into Cancer is more astrotheological scripting. Very nice catch. When I say that NASA is a Egyptian mystery school, I mean it quite literally. I would even call SpaceX a sex cult. And there's a lot coming out right now about SpaceX and how employees are or have been treated and how it's highly charged in a certain way that makes a lot of the ladies uncomfortable. And you'll see, there's some stuff. I don't think that he's going to be like some P. Diddy type, but Elon Musk's Space XXX was the article that came out. Allegations. Now, I don't really believe on any of this stuff, but I think that this is rather maybe even just sort of a reveal on an esoteric level of what we're really looking at here. Rockets are quite literally obelisks. That is their primary function. Religious iconography. Space travel is not their real purpose. And look here on Quora. I often mishear SpaceX as space sex. How could others fail to notice this? They didn't fail to notice this. It is intrinsic to what this cult is. You know about Nexium and all these other weird sex cults. Well, SpaceX is part of the same thing. It's basically the highest levels of the occult merged with science fiction, and it exists at the highest levels of government because we're apparently ruled over by wizards on some level, or druids, excuse me, druids. So again, tomorrow is the longest day of the year. I had this comment from Linda Curtis I thought was interesting in our Gilded. She said, "This morning I woke up to what I thought was a car alarm. It wasn't super loud, it wasn't too annoying. Then, as it was happening, I heard what sounded like a soft machine gun fire. I got up and I opened the back door and realized it was birds chirping. I think they're learning to mimic tech." Anyone else encounter anything like this? Kind of ominous. I've been getting into it with the chemtrailers. I'm not going to spend any time talking about it now, but just a heads up, I am writing it, well, I'm almost done with an ebook that I'm going to distribute here very soon called Informed Disbelief. It might even be Informed Non-Belief, but the point of it is, I think I have the final nail in the coffin to deal with this. And it's not just about chemtrails, but I think there's a certain tactic that's used by controlled opposition to lure people who stray from the mainstream into the controlled opposition networks. And I think I figured out their main sales pitch, and I'm reverse engineering it in this ebook, which you'll see. Elisa J says Cancer 6-9 crab symbolism next on the horizon. Correct. Yes, and the crab is the kraken. There's a correlation here, but again, we're looking at last year we had these people in this submersible lost but falling, going down to the Titanic, and so this year it's these two falling. And this mission again has been nothing but an unmitigated disaster, nothing but delays, thrusters failing. The name Boeing makes it seem like it's cursed, and then there's a few other elements here. Let me bring this up in our Discord server. A set of parachutes which Boeing redesigned and tested must slow the capsule down before it reaches terra firma. Now listen to this. Starliner will be the first US-made capsule to parachute to a landing on the ground rather than splashing in the ocean. Boeing hopes. God, that sounds like a disaster. Like, Boeing hopes it goes well. Boeing hopes this will make it easier to recover and refurbish it after the flight. So they're going to land on the ground. What could go wrong? Interesting. 2 astronauts wait to come home as Boeing races to understand spacecraft issues. Here's what's at stake. This is from CNN today. Synchromorphy said Butch and Suni are waiting to make their perilous trip down to Earth. And their names, Butch and Suni, their last names, Williams and Wilmore. Williams and Wilmore will return no earlier than the 26th. Ooh, that's interesting. We'll see. I don't want to read too much into it. It says a nail-biting finale. They definitely built up a lot of tension here. This is dramatic tension. I don't know if any of you are feeling it, but I think they want all eyes on this. And I'm not a disaster predictor, but I saw the name Boeing, and just following off of a year of fake news about Boeing and Boeing whistleblowers, I thought, it's likely this is going to be a disaster. And ever since, we noticed that this is a Boeing mission, it's been a disaster. Okay, this is. I got a few articles here. I'm trying to go through my Discord server. Someone had sent me something interesting earlier today. I'm trying to find it. Massachusetts had a 911 outage yesterday. No purges happened. All right, phones are open. If you want to call in, 563-999-3664. 33-year-old terrorizes New York City. I should have just asked you. I should have just told you, hey, there was this guy in New York yesterday who was on top of a 10-story building throwing debris, furniture, bricks off the roof and terrorizing people below. How old was he? And every single person in chat would have said 33. What you have here, New Yorker A-hole of the week goes to somebody in Midtown. Again, 10-story building, throwing objects off. People are screaming, blocking off the roads. It turns out he was 33. And I only say this because, and I've been saying this for a couple of years now, if we quarantine the 33-year-olds, we could have a year of peace. And if you look in history, you know how many of these individuals have been S starters at that age? And it's pretty much anybody who's anybody at any historical pivot point was 33 when he had his big day. Martin Luther, 33. Jesus, 33. We have the QAnon shaman most recently. I was like, that guy almost killed democracy with a spear, 33, at the time that he did his thing. It's a reoccurring theme. Yeah, Pippi Langstrumpf says 33. You're right. Every answer to every pop quiz here is 33 because it's so predictable. But what does this mean? It made me think of like, New York building, stuff falling down, people screaming. I don't know, it's kind of on brand, I guess, for the psyops they do in New York. The stuff falling from the sky is kind of a theme there. And the building, it looked like a 9/11-y type scene, just the chaos. But the number 33 also has this connotation of order out of chaos. It's basically a calling card. Like when you see this number, you're looking at an engineered event. And if you're in the know, you know not to get triggered, but to pay attention to the deeper meaning. Now, what could this mean? Not quite sure yet. I'm not sure. If anybody has any idea or what this might mean, feel free to chime in. But I don't think it's just some guy on top of a building throwing stuff off the roof. Jack Danger on X said, shock video, most mass shootings and mass casualty injury events you've been shown on television were done by the government. Watch this. Oh, I see. Mass casualty actors and the government. So this is a video that we've already seen. I think it's great, but not great, that there are so many people coming around and saying, hey, Vegas was fake. It's like, well, where were you 7 years ago? I knew Vegas was fake 10/1/2017. Here it is 2024, and you're scratching the surface? So this is a collection, it's a montage of crisis actors. Like this one, fun, engaging acting work in Las Vegas, $20 per hour. I like these mashups. This is a pretty good takedown of the Vegas event. And there are a lot of, like, Mindy Robinson and other far-right conspiracy theorist influencers who are continually pushing the official lies about Vegas. It was real, but it was a false flag to make Trump look bad. People really died. They all say this stuff. But here we have video where there's someone walking around in the dark wondering why they turned the lights off in the stadium. I mean, think about it. A bunch of people get shot in a concert, and instead of paramedics rushing in to triage and save lives, the security guard shuts the lights off. And this one person who obviously wasn't in on the gig is walking around, and everybody's saying, just keep moving, keep on moving. They're just trying to get rid of him because they're pretending to be hurt. And he asks the security guard, and the security guard just makes him leave. Anyway, this video is really a bombshell, but we were well aware of this a long time ago. But the reason why people are just now figuring this out is that it's safe, I guess. Maybe that's it. I don't know. There's really no excuse, to be honest. And I know why. It's because they're in the MSM Plus realm. If you're an MSM Plus, and that means if you still trust that the news is reporting facts, but that they're just not telling you the whole story, that little bit of trust keeps you locked in their false paradigm. Like, you can't even assume the basic story to be true. So the basic story is all these people get shot. But the alternative story is, yeah, but there were 3 shooters. It's like, well, you didn't change the event. You just changed the narrative. Well, I'm suggesting that the narrative itself, the spins, are there to distract you from the fact that the event never happened. And what's more, 13 months after that event, 50 of the same people were shot at again at another country music concert. They had a sequel, which was called an eerie coincidence by many, but it was layered with impossibilities. I mean, not only was there a repeat event, but there was actually a drill down the street from the repeat event, consisting of the same number of people, and it was scripted based off of Vegas. So fake, unbelievable. Well, no, I shouldn't say unbelievable, because everything is believable today. A new agreement between Russia and North Korea states they will provide each other with immediate military assistance in the event of a war. Yeah, I saw those two getting along rather nicely, Putin and Kim Jong Un, and they were kind of playfully fighting over who was going to get into the back of the car first. And yeah, they're bros. They have a little bromance, and they're gonna, I don't know, jointly aim their rockets at us. I don't believe in nukes, so I'm not intimidated by these actors in the world stage. A lot of people think, oh, we're all being collectively held hostage by all these psychopaths with too much power. No, it's all in your mind. All right, let's see here. Elisa J says, well, people still think their votes count. Still picking sides, dividing and conquering, problem, reaction, solution, order out of chaos. Yeah, exactly. They still think voting helps, and the default position for truthers, for people leaning right, for people who know media lies, it's always going to be the Republican candidate. And I don't like this idea that every single truther is expected to vote for Trump. And non-voting is not enough. Non-participation is actually it's almost not even a protest because you're still taking part, but you're just not taking part in those two choices. It's not really outside the box thinking. So this year, this election cycle, I'm not gonna be a non-participant because I say I'm a conscientious objector, and if you vote, you are a participant in the mind war. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to vote for Joe Biden publicly. And the reason why is that I want to trigger the truthers who still think voting matters. Like, oh, you think my vote matters? That me voting for Biden is going to affect the outcome? Okay, well, you're still programmed. So I'm going to vote for Biden as a protest vote, as an ironic vote, and as a statement. Anyone else with me? Anyone else here? We'll form a coalition, a pack. Mizell says North Korea sent, yeah, they did, human waste and trash-filled balloons to South Korea. This is where it's at. Says I voted for Kendrick Lamar. He won in a landslide. Rip Drake. Nothing like a fake hip hop beef to get the blood flowing. It's about getting attention. You know, faking deaths has its limitations. These days, right wingers are getting arrested. Previously, as they were getting swatted. But now getting arrested is a thing. Okay, continuing. Thank you for the super chat. Happy you're still here, says Elisa J. Yeah, we're not going anywhere. I have a 30-year plan. You know, we're not going away. In fact, I want to accelerate everything. I want to double the amount of time that I spend on this. We have so many projects that are not where I want them to be, but it is okay because we have certain obligations first, like this legal suit, the civil suit against Google, which is going to be good. I think it's going to turn out in our favor. And it's really not about money or damages. It's about punching Big Brother in the face for censorship, marginalization, for making the playing field favor mind control over free thought. I mean, there are so many reasons. We're really justified in it. But they didn't play fair. And I want their apology because it'll be humiliating for them. Yeah, and if you can't find me, go to ips.monster. ips.monster, you have all of the links right there. InfinitePlaneSociety.com. We're on all the platforms. And we're also on all of the podcasting platforms. You can also join ips.monster and get the archives in your inbox, or you can join at Patreon, same thing. Harmon Walker has brought a box of blue wrenches into the lodge here. Lean Dion, Blue Wrench Lodge, Jennifer Reeves, Salty Siren, Elise. Yeah, this is a membership to the IPS official YouTube channel, where I will be continuing to upload videos for members only. Okay, so Elisa J got cut off when our Discord went down. You said they were after our network. We had a Discord server going back years, tons of content. I mean, it would have been worth preserving. Very active. However, we were infiltrated by 4chan level, little double digit pro-Hitler Nazi spam trolls from Telegram, and it was terrible. because what they would do is they would spam this stuff that doesn't, it's not up to par. It's MSM plus at best. They're not auto hoaxers. They may say this event is a hoax, but they believe everything else is real. Like they're not in the right frame of mind. They didn't belong there, but we didn't censor them because I was trying to be Mr. Big Tent. Everybody's words have a platform, and that's not really. I don't think that's the approach now. I mean, it's not viable, and it's not even smart, to be honest. We have to have standards, and I think the standards were too low. But it set us up because as soon as they had posted a certain amount of bannable content, it was very easy for Discord to just WTC7 all of our hard work, just like that, and scatter the network. But my intent this summer is to build our network back up. I intend to get every former IPS listener back on the same sheet within the next couple of months. I have a pretty extensive plan to make that happen. Okay, new blue wrench holders, FMGR, Scott Rankin, Rome, Nicotramus. Elephant Tusk says you won't be voting for Biden. Newsom is the replacement. Okay. Well, there was this, I don't know if I believe it, but you remember the whole thing with Nicole Simpson being Megyn Kelly? Well, there's this other thing that Ron Goldman didn't die either, obviously. But what happened to him? And the rumor is he came back as Governor Newsom. Now, I don't know if I can stand by this 100%. I need a little more information, but since we're talking about Newsom, it's kind of relevant here. But I don't think Biden's going to die or go away. I mean, those rubber masks have a very long life. Those things will last thousands of years. They don't age. Just swap out the actors. They could just keep Biden in office indefinitely. Why change it? If it's not broke, don't fix it. Me and my drone, Blue Wrench Lodge. IFEPA 73, Blue Wrench Lodge. KKIN received a membership gift, Blue Wrench Lodge. Awesome. Okay, fascinating. Thank you, Harmon. Appreciate that. All right, I'm catching up on your comments. There's quite a lot going on. Very, very busy tonight. In fact, Skyfish notes. Yes, the chats have been growing. Yeah, I can give you an idea of the numbers. Let's just take a quick look. We have, and this is a very slow night compared to other nights. Okay, we have about 70 people on YouTube right now, about 30 on Odyssey, and I have about the same number of people listening over at our 24/7 radio stream at Radio King. Tune in. So we're probably close to 150, but we've generally been getting over 200. Now, the membership thing for the IPS channel is simply $1 per month. And the reason I do this is to fund the channel, one, but also to give the members here a priority on the comments. So if I upload a video that's behind a paywall, I will read your comments first. And these videos will generally go public after a couple days. This is where it's asked, says Biden has been used to make elderly folk look bad. It looks like elder abuse in some ways. It depends on the context, but there's like videos of him looking lost, but there's always an excuse. Oh, it's a deep fake or a cheap fake. Now, a cheap fake is like a deep fake, except that they're not adding anything. It's just selective editing. Like in 2016, they would do videos of Nancy Pelosi and they would slow it down because truthers are so truthy that they alter footage, and they would say, Nancy Pelosi's drunk. She's slurring her speech. It's like, no, you slowed it down. That's a cheap fake. And so they're saying that the videos depicting Biden as decrepit are all cheap fakes. My take on it, though, was I think it's all symbolic. We're because look, I've been watching all these Netflix movies and noticing patterns like Civil War. If you remember Civil War, they made a point to have the President Trump guy killed by a female black soldier. But they chose the demographic by design intentionally. And there's been this reoccurring theme throughout many Netflix shows. Another good one is, I think, DMZ. Then you have so many I could name here where you have this strong female protagonist, president, leader, like we've been conditioned for this for some time. Like they are getting us ready for, Kamala Harris or something. But my point of it is, I think with Biden, we're meant to see symbolically the death of whatever he represents, um, old white patriarchy. I think it's all theater, if that's even the real Biden. Not that I care to get into that. It's immaterial at this point. Yes, we use Ko-Fi as well, by the way. The super chat link is there. And on the Ko-Fi site, I also sell a lot of artwork. And tomorrow I'm going to put up an ebook I've been working on. Because we are separate. What we're doing is so different from what many others in this area are doing, and I don't want to be confused with them. So, for example, I advocate informed non-belief. If you're going to say something's not real, you should be able to know why it's not real, not just it's not real because I don't believe it's real. Now, that's childish and it doesn't really work that way. It's not enough just to hand wave evidence that you don't like away and only look at the evidence that you favor or that favors your position. It's intrinsically dishonest. So we're not auto disbelievers. No, the auto believer, the person who automatically believes the news, is not thinking. The person who automatically disbelieves without investigating why they don't believe it, they're not really thinking. They're reacting. They're just taking a reactionary position. But there's an informed, principled non-belief that arises from knowing why you know it's fake or why what has been presented as the explanation doesn't weigh as much as this other possibility. So it's really about suspending judgment and looking at the facts, not choosing the narratives that fit one's particular biases. Daniel Kirby has joined us. He says they parodied a TrutherCon and mentioned Tom Hanks, Oprah, Isaac Cappy. Oh, yes, yes. It's called The Boys, I believe, and we played some of that the other day, season 4. And it's some TV show where they were kind of making fun of QAnoners, Trumpers. Well, they weren't even making fun of them. It wasn't even a parody. They're talking about Tom Hanks being a Satanist and hot dogs and tacos and pizzas being ways of representing boys and girls that they're selling to the elite for the adrenochrome. Like, that's not parody. That's what QAnon actually believes. That's what they actually say. In fact, they didn't go far enough. They didn't go far enough. I don't think it can be a parody. I mean, Q is pretty much a Poe. It's a parody of extremism, but it's such a good parody that you can't tell whether they're being serious or not. And this comes from Poe's law, an adage of internet culture which says that without a clear indicator of the author's intent, any parody or sarcastic expression of extreme views could be mistaken as a sincere expression of those views. Like the QAnon shaman, for example. Does he believe any of what he says? No. It's not even believable. It's not even congruent with anything else that he espouses. But he walks out there with his buffalo costume, his spear. He probably smells like roadkill. He's got the Braveheart face paint, just running around yelling freedom. And, it's hard to say this guy's not serious. Like, he looks so real. And unless he tells us he's just kidding, you'd have no way of knowing. Like, he really committed to the bit. J. Dig says, I posted this in Gilded earlier. The character who gave the speech was based on MTG. Oh, easily, easily. What they'll do is they will take real-time characters on the world stage and insert them into the entertainment, and they barely disguise it. I mean, they don't even conceal it. In 2016, they were killing Donald Trump in Central Park in the Julius Caesar play. The recent Tom Wolfe adaptation, A Man in Fool on Netflix, is 100% based on Trump, as we've been discussing. Okay, let's continue. So tomorrow, the astronauts will be landing on the ground, first time ever. What could go wrong? Cancer. We're entering into Cancer from Gemini, and there's 2 of them like twins, like Gemini twins. The timing of it is just too perfect. Okay, the lady that gave the speech hitting all the Pizzagate QAnon talking points was based on Marjorie Taylor Greene. I see it. Eric Kripp says Marjorie Taylor Greene was the inspiration for Firecracker in The Boys Season 4. Quote, you have these Trump spawn that are trying to outdo each other for how outrageous, sexualized, gun-toting, and slavishly obedient they can be with Homelander. He would start to create the spores that would grow into these other characters, and she's a version of that. It's a strange cast of characters, all these attention chasers, MTG, Jack Posobiec, Nick Fuentes, and it's all a cult of personality. And Nick Fuentes running around like a goofball doing the invisible accordion like he's Trump, pretending like he's getting kicked out of Turning Point USA in order to create a scene. And that's all it is. It's a scene. There's no political platform here. And they're all hypocrites. And none of them believe any of what they say. At least I haven't seen any indication to think so. All right, moving on. Again, climate protesters spraying orange. And that matches an Illuminati playing card. No coincidences there. All right, I'm going to go through my Twitter feed. If you follow me, it's IPS Insider. Now, this was found by They Are Already Here. During the production of 1968's 2001 A Space Odyssey, Davenport read the lines of Hell 9000 during the computer's dialogue with the other actors. However, Stanley Kubrick thought Davenport's English accent was too distracting and he was dismissed, and they brought in Douglas Rain. But the significance here, newsbenders about those individuals behind the scenes that script our reality is at the very end. It's kind of like following the same theme. They bring up the supercomputer. So they're suggesting that the newsbenders have access to some supercomputer that is actually writing or guiding them, giving them the scripts. So it's interesting that they throw it in there at the end because this is, again, Newsbenders 1968, same year as 2001 Space Odyssey, where you have Hell 9000. And Hell 9000 has, it's the all-seeing eye, it's this all-seeing lens, but I think it represents the architect behind everything. And ultimately, that's kind of what Newsbenders is about. So it's just notable that the character from Newsbenders was the voice, or could have been the voice, of Hell 9000. All right, catching up on your comments. Lean Dion says, watched a recent Simpsons episode. Marge and Lisa train to go to Mars, and at the last minute, the rocket launch is called off because the owners admit it's all fake, and they did it to inspire the public. Okay, that sounds almost like too real. Here it is. Lisa signs up for an opportunity to be part of a mission to colonize Mars in 10 years, and Homer's strategy is to use reverse psychology to talk her out of it backfires. Okay, I'm going to look into this. The Margian Chronicles. Lisa Goes to Mars Part 2. So this has been a thing with her, hasn't it? So going to Mars is code for communist revolution. And when I say communist, I mean lowercase c. It's about converting humanity into propertyless serfs or slaves on Martian bases, on communes in distant remote places, which won't really be on Mars. It'll probably be beneath the Denver airport. So if you buy an expensive, overpriced ticket to Mars, you're not really going there. You're going to hyperloop to some Truman Show with red sand and a sky that's designed to look like Mars. So I finished watching Fallout, and in the Fallout shelters, they do create these total environments with projectors where it looks like you're in the middle of a cornfield. But I don't think they're capable of faking Mars for millions of people to really be in a fake habitat. I think the way they will really do it is the first Martian colonists will all be NASA actors, and we'll be interacting with them here on Earth, just like we do with the ISS. They have to go in stages. So after the space station, it'll be Mars bases. They'll probably do Mars before the moon. Anytime they do anything on the moon, it always has to be the far side. Like China is building stuff on the other side. Like, why can't you do it on our side so we can look at it through our telescopes and just shut down that entire conversation? All right, now I'm looking forward to this Boeing Starlink disaster tomorrow. Oh, this is nice. Brett Flat Earth Bible posted this. He said, "Did you know there's no sound in a vacuum? Because there's no medium for the sound to vibrate off of. So then why do we hear the astronauts making sound on Apollo 16 videos?" So here's a short clip where a man takes the air out of a glass jar in which there's a bell, and he shows that there's no sound in the vacuum. And then after this, it cuts to a shot from Apollo 11 where you can hear the astronauts, and I think they're caught making noise a number of times, hammering in stakes and stuff.
Now I think you can hear the bell quite clearly. And that's a very nice experiment to demonstrate how...
So it was soundless and then it made noise. Well, now here we're looking at Apollo 16 audio analysis summary. Initially, the audio investigation began with the fact that hammer strikes were heard and recorded on the moon. And here's what we have. And they enhanced the audio, they removed background, and you do indeed see that his motions correspond to the noise that he's making.
Thank you, Dawson Para. The IPS appreciates the support.
And you're hearing it through the vacuum of space. Yeah, thank you very much, Dewis and Para. Appreciate that. Keeping gas in the think tank. All right, here we go. This is a clip from this analysis of the Apollo 16 videos. Loud mechanical sounding strikes, clearly heard again. Now, everyone talks about Apollo 11 like it's the event, like 9/11. Like they focus on the big ones. But all the other events are where they really screw up just as much. And I think we got to look at many of these other missions as well. Like, I think there's a lot of shady stuff about the golfing on the moon that's probably fake as well. Noise removed, resynced, amplified. And, okay, you heard that little knock, knock, knock? Yeah, that corresponds to his hand banging on something. You're hearing it through the vacuum of space. More sound from the rover. Okay, there's a lot of noise up there. I'm not going to play the entire thing, but I did tweet about it, and I put a link on my minds.com. So it's pretty noisy up there. I don't know what the excuse is. They probably have one. They'll say it has enough of an atmosphere to... They'll make up something. They're masters of moving the goalposts. Of moving the curve back. Do you remember the old days? It was like 8 inches per mile squared. And it's like, oh, P900. Now it's like, no, there is no curvature formula. J Dig says all of their time would have been spent adjusting the camera settings for the 40K pictures they took. Well, people who are advocates of the moon landing hoaxes will reference these photos and they'll say this can't all be fake, and you have to understand, they don't understand that it's a movie and it's a self-contained universe and it assumes its own validity. And that's how these debates always go. The globe side, the moon landing side, will always operate under the assumption that we're all in agreement that their video is scientific evidence and it's unimpeachable. All of the space photography, space video, all the spacewalks, ISS stuff, yeah, that's scientific evidence. And they can't operate outside of that premise. Therefore, any debate with a glurf is invalid and pointless. It is absolutely pointless to debate somebody about the shape of the world when they don't even realize that media fakery is responsible for their worldview itself. That you cannot understand, or rather you could not fully arrive at this worldview were it not for special effects, media fakery, perception management, and lies. And a bunch of liars. In fact, let me put this up here. This is Faith in Globe. This is on my Substack. Lean Dion says micro sound pockets. That would explain it. Sort of like when the astronauts drop things on the space station and things fall to the ground noisily. Like one astronaut is showing off, as a cosmonaut, he's showing off the bathroom facilities and he drops a screw on the ground and it hits the floor noisily. And he picks it up, and I'm like, wait a minute here. I didn't think there was gravity up there. What happened? And they said, oh, it's microgravity. So apparently, little pockets of gravity are out there that will cause your stuff to fall, if you believe it. Skyfish says, imagine Star Wars space fighting scenes without sound effects wouldn't be as exciting. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. I hadn't considered that. And most people's concept of outer space is an amalgamation of science fiction movies and whatever NASA shows us. They actually merge the two. That's what the whole two into one, the whole monolith thing is all about. Merging real with fake, dragging us onto a movie set. And our frame of reference is basically Hollywood, basically fiction. We have a fictional frame of reference because we live in a fictional universe, a collectively agreed upon mass delusion. When I say we, I mean everybody but us. Faith in Globe, a comment on the present state of flat Earth debate. There's yet to be a single legitimate flat versus round Earth debate. Why do I say so? Because every single one grants the globe proponent the ability to appeal to the authority of their own source. If all the images and videos of outer space, allegedly taken from outer space, are assumed to be real, then there cannot be an honest conversation, much less a resolution via debate. It would be like debating the existence of a deity, but with the stipulation that skeptics cannot question the veracity of the claims made by the priesthood, who are said to have seen their God while atop a high mountain. If claims to divine authorship of Scripture cannot be challenged, there's no room for skepticism. These constraints would render a debate, an honest debate, impossible. So the globe proponents refuse to take into account the role of special effects, Photoshop, video editing, lies, false witnesses in the formation of their belief. Therefore, their own ignorance and visual illiteracy are a protective mechanism. This is analogous to faith in the religious context, which I don't have a problem with faith in the religious context, but people today have faith in media, in their pundits, in the screen. And this idea of faith is often, in religion, it's how people get around things they don't have any evidence for. You can just lean onto your faith. Well, what the globe proponents do is they ignore the discrepancies, they ignore facts that contradict their beliefs by trusting their source even harder. I used to call them, it's like screen thumpers. You got Bible thumpers. Well, these guys were like pointing at their screen. Like, I saw it on TV, I saw it on TV. Sorry, that's not an argument. But the globe proponents already concede the debate when they hand wave away questions about the video content from space agencies that discredits outer space. I've dealt with this before. I will show them something on the ISS that is obviously fake, and they will scurry away saying, that's not my claim. And then they want to take the conversation into an area where they have expertise. But the globe proponents will forever ignore media fakery as though it doesn't exist. So when they wave it away, and they say, oh, you're just incredulous, they're actually losing the debate. From an honest perspective, they're losing. The fact they ignore evidence means they're not honest with themselves or their own perceptions, A, or B, they're incapable of discerning real from fake. And if you're incapable of discerning real from fake, then what qualifies you to debate the shape of the world or our cosmology, our cosmography? So the state of the debate is that it's abysmal. And the only tenable position in 2024 is shape agnosticism. If you're not a shape agnostic, you're confused right now. All right, moving on. Lean Dion says Universal Studios has the current ball model decades before it was seen by NASA. Well, I think the Universal Studio logo, the globe with the word Universal, I think that's a perfect emblem or idol. It represents I guess you would call this the idol, the globe, which it's an idol. It's a representation of our one world perspective, our one view, our shared consensus mass delusion. But the word universal itself is notable because it means Catholic. Catholic. It's the same thing. This is the New World Order's newest iteration. The old world order is the new world order. It's the same thing. So here you have the idea of, the church as being universal. Well, you could argue that the space religion of Nasatology is universal, because whether you're a Jew, Muslim, Christian, atheist, Scientologist, Mooney, no matter what your faith or lack of, you're still part of this universal religion, and it's all premised on the acceptance of this idol. Dewis Impera says they got it wrong. The universe is flat. Yeah, the universe is flat. So after, I guess, Friday the 13th in 2029, April 2029, after that planet killer takes us out, the question of shape won't matter, because Earth won't exist. There will only be the flat universe. And whoever manages to escape this will be in that, apparently, or on it. We know as of 2013 that the universe is flat. This suggests that the universe is infinite in extent. However, since the universe has a finite age, we can only observe a finite volume. Interesting. Our universe appears perfectly spatially flat, with the initial total energy density and the initial expansion rate balancing one another. How thick is the flat universe? Right, how deep? Like, let's say we're at the bottom of the flat universe. How deep could you dig? Anyway, what shape is the universe? It's flat, geometrically flat. And most globies don't know this. Most glurfs don't know. You say, hey, what's the shape of the solar system? I'm like, it's a ball. No, your solar system is flat. You got the non-planet Pluto, the only exception, but that's part of the idea. Pluto's the underworld, so it's 17 degrees below the ecliptic. But it's flat. So you're a flat solar system-er, if you're a heliocentrist, which to me is kind of absurd. It's almost too perfect. They say it's conservation of angular momentum or something. Look, some of these arguments people make just need to be shut down. Like, they'll say, how come every other planet is a perfect sphere? How can the Earth not be? Well, the Earth isn't. If the Earth is an oblate spheroid, because of the conservation of angular momentum, if it's fatter in the middle, then why aren't any of the other planets or exoplanets ever demonstrated to be anything but perfect spheres? There's no oblate spheroids in space. Find me one oblate spheroid planet, please. Just one. You can't. Except for the Earth, the only one we can't see. Elephant Tusk says the Earth is just an energetic field. Dua says maybe we should call ourselves flat universers. Then we escape the dialectic trap. And puts the onus back on the trolling question. Yeah, you know what? I agree with that. In fact, we tried that for a while. I think I even made some designs for some flat universer bumper stickers, because we can all agree on that. And to me, it's really ultimately the shape question has always been about open versus closed. This is interesting. Geometry of the universe. 3 different versions. And the reason why I was such an opponent to the domed flat Earth model is they don't have evidence for it. So they're in the same camp as the ball Earth. And it assumes a closed system. Like, oh, we already know everything. Everything that we have seen on the globe is all there is, but it's actually under a dome. So it's the same closed system. And I happen to think that if there is a reasonable explanation for promoting a false model, it would be to close us off in a false paradigm for the purposes of resource monopolies and centralized control, and who knows what else. I mean, we could be a quarantine section, but whatever the case, it's premature to suggest that we're boxed in, closed in, domed in. I don't buy any of that. So I'm arguing in favor of the open system and that it's infinite until proven otherwise. Okay, Steve Bannon, who's going to jail in a couple of weeks, is at Turning Point USA, which I contend is based on Turner Diaries. And this is where they agitate the right wing, PSYOP operatives, because it's all going to be fake. But the rise of the next Timothy McVeigh, domestic violent extremism, the next McVeigh is being prepped. And Steve Bannon at Turning Point is one of the instigators. And here he is telling his audience here that it's time to die on the battlefield.
And they fully intend to steal it. This republic ends. Are you prepared to fight? Are you prepared to give it all? Are you prepared to leave it all on the battlefield? Ladies and gentlemen, it's very simple. Victory or death.
Victory or death. Okay, again, that's Turning Point USA. So the other day I mentioned that there were reports about fencing going up around the Supreme Court of the United States because of a Trump ruling. And I looked for any stories and I couldn't find anything. Well, it turns out it was truther bait. And truther bait is when they release something in the news on the right side or on the conspiracy side, a current thing to be agitated about, and then once there's a big reaction, they say, oh, that was fake. So, for example, there was that recent shooting at Joel Osteen's church. Sadly, he wasn't there. And the shooter was rumored to be a trans shooter, which has been a theme recently because they couldn't get the right-wingers to care about neo-Nazi shooters with MAGA hats because, they're on their side. So they brought up these Reddit agitated trans shooters, and now suddenly the right cares about mass shootings. So you have this person shooting up this mega church, and that rumor went out there. A bunch of right-wing leaning types ran with that, and then it turned out to be fake. So you have to vet your information because it shows them to be auto believers. They're not suspending judgment as to whether something is real or not. If it's sensationalistic, they will share it. I have been seeing these reports about monoliths appearing all over Vegas. I'm more or less not interested in it. I don't know if it has any broader significance. I think it's just a PR stunt, assuming they even exist. I mean, these could just be augmented virtual reality objects. Now here's an interesting excerpt from Encyclopedia of Freemasonry by Albert Mackey 33, and it has to do with atheism. Atheist is a definition. One who does not believe in the existence of God. Such a state of mind can only arise from the ignorance of stupidity or a corruption of principle, since the whole universe is filled with the moral and physical proofs of a creator. He who does not look to a superior and superintending power as his maker and his judge is without that coercive... That's all I have. It goes on. But I think this is an interesting point. And I think that we live in a model they've given us that's basically a corpse. Nothing means anything. It's grinding to a halt. And we are apes with big egos who tell ourselves things to assuage the fear that life has no meaning and that we're finite and mortal. Well, I think everything I just said is the opposite of how it really is. And I don't think there are any real atheists. Show me an atheist and I'll show you somebody who has accepted every single God construct given to them by the MSM that's templated off of Old Testament archetypes and concepts. In other words, there are no real atheists. The atheists are in fact the most fanatical religionists out there these days. The believers in scientism. Believers, not knowers, not researchers, just the people who believe it because it's their faith in science. If you're with that, you therefore believe we are in the end times, which I reject. I don't think the world's going to end. Not in 2029 when Apophis hits us. Not in 2050. It's not going to end at any time. Like, it's just not even predictable. Like, it's not even a safe assumption. It's grinding to a halt. But the people who believe it's going to end are either religious nutcases with traditional religious beliefs, or religious nutcases who believe in too much science and believe anybody with a white smock. They both believe we are in the end times. It's very apocalyptic, especially so with politics now. It's always about the end, the final battle, Armageddon. Elephant Tusk says, I thought I heard Tim say Olstein when it's Austin. Yeah, that's one of these things. the Mandela effect have